David thought moving into the Riverside apartments would be a fresh start after his divorce. He needed somewhere quiet to rebuild his life. The building wasn't fancy, but it had character. Old brick walls, wooden floors that creaked when you walked, and windows that looked out onto the street below. His apartment was on the second floor, perfect for someone who didn't want to deal with too many neighbors. There was Mrs. Chen, who lived next door with her 3 cats, and Tom across the hall, who worked night shifts at the hospital. Above him lived someone he hadn't met yet, but he could hear footsteps sometimes in the evening. The first few weeks were peaceful. David would come home from his job at the accounting firm, make dinner, watch some TV, and go to bed early. He was trying to get his life back on track after everything that happened with his marriage. But then strange things started happening. It began with sleep. David had always been a good sleeper, but now he was waking up feeling tired, really tired, like he hadn't slept at all. He would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like something was wrong but not knowing what. Sometimes he would wake up in the middle of the night with the strangest feeling that someone was looking at him. You know that feeling when you're in a crowded place and you can sense someone staring? It was exactly like that, but he was alone in his bedroom with the door locked. He would sit up, turn on the light, and look around. Nothing. Just his dresser, his closet, the window with the curtains drawn. But the feeling wouldn't go away for hours. David started thinking it was stress. The divorce had been hard, and starting over in a new place wasn't easy. Maybe his mind was just playing tricks on him. Then he noticed other things. His coffee mug would be in a different spot on the counter than where he left it. His book would be on the wrong side of the nightstand. Little things that made him pause and think. Did I put that there? At first, he blamed himself. Maybe he was more distracted. Then he thought, but it kept happening. And David was a careful person. He always put things back in the same place. One morning, he found muddy footprints on his fire escape. They weren't his shoes. He was sure of that. His sneakers had a different pattern, and these prints were smaller. When he asked Mrs. Chen about it, she just shrugged and said maybe it was the building maintenance guy. But why would maintenance be on his fire escape? David started paying more attention to his surroundings. That's when he noticed her. The woman who lived upstairs would appear in the strangest places. At the coffee shop where he bought his morning coffee, she would be there reading a book. At the grocery store, she would be in the same aisle, picking up items and putting them back. She was probably in her early 30s, with brown hair that she usually kept in a ponytail. She dressed simply, jeans and sweaters mostly, nothing that would make her stand out in a crowd. The weird part was how she seemed to know things about his routine. One day at the coffee shop, she was in line behind him. When he ordered his usual black coffee with 1 sugar, she smiled and said, "You always get the same thing. I like that in a person." David was confused. He had never talked to her before, never even made eye contact. How did she know what he always ordered? "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" he asked. She laughed, a light sound that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I live upstairs from you. I'm Lisa. I've been meaning to introduce myself." "Oh, right. I'm David. Nice to meet you." "I know," she said, and there was something in the way she said it that made him uncomfortable. The conversation should have ended there, but Lisa kept talking. She mentioned that she knew he worked at the accounting firm downtown because she had seen him leaving in the mornings. She knew he liked to order Chinese food on Fridays because she could smell it in the hallway. It all made sense, David thought. Neighbors noticed things about each other, but something felt off about the way she was watching him, like she was studying his reactions. Over the next few weeks, David kept running into Lisa. At the bank, at the pharmacy, at the park where he sometimes went for walks, always friendly. Always with that same smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She would make comments about things she couldn't possibly know, unless she was paying very close attention to his life. She knew he had been to the doctor because she asked how his checkup went. She knew he had ordered new furniture because she mentioned hearing the delivery truck. David started feeling like he was being watched everywhere he went, not just at home, but out in the world too. He would turn around expecting to see someone behind him. But the street would be empty. His sleep got worse. He would wake up multiple times during the night, sometimes hearing soft footsteps in the hallway outside his door. When he looked through the peephole, no one was there. He thought about talking to someone about it, but what would he say? That his upstairs neighbor was being too friendly? That he had a feeling something was wrong but couldn't prove it? His ex-wife Rachel had always said he was paranoid. Maybe she was right. Maybe he was just not used to living alone in his imagination. Was running wild. But deep down, David knew something wasn't right. The feeling of being watched was getting stronger, and he couldn't shake the sense that someone was learning everything about his life, his habits, his schedule. One night, he made a decision. He went to the electronics store and bought a small security camera. Nothing fancy, just something that would record his bedroom while he slept. If nothing was happening, the footage would show him sleeping peacefully, and he could stop worrying. If something was happening, well, at least he would know he wasn't going crazy. David set up the camera that night, pointing it toward his bed. He felt a little silly doing it, but he needed to know the truth. He needed to sleep peacefully again. As he lay down and closed his eyes, he had no idea that the camera would capture something that would change his life forever. The feeling of being watched was stronger than ever that night, but David forced himself to stay still and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, he would check the footage and finally have answers. He had no idea how much he would wish he had never bought that camera. David woke up the next morning feeling terrible. He had barely slept, tossing and turning all night. The feeling of being watched had been stronger than ever, but now he would finally have answers. He made his coffee and sat down at his laptop to check the camera footage. His hands were shaking a little as he opened the file. Part of him hoped he would just see himself sleeping alone, proving that his mind was playing tricks on him. But that's not what he saw. The footage started normally. David getting into bed, turning off the lights, lying still. For the first hour, everything looked normal. Just a man trying to sleep in his own bedroom. Then, at 1:47 a.m., something changed. David watched in horror as his bedroom door slowly opened. He remembered locking it before bed. He always locked his bedroom door. But there it was, opening like someone had a key. A figure stepped into the room. Even in the dim light from the street outside, David could see it was Lisa. She was wearing dark clothes and moving very quietly, like she had done this before. She stood at the foot of his bed for what felt like forever, just standing there, looking at him while he slept. David's stomach turned as he watched himself lying there, completely unaware of what was happening. Lisa didn't just stand there. She walked around the bed, looking at him from different angles. She picked up things from his nightstand, examining them in the dim light. His watch, his phone, a book he had been reading. She touched everything with her hands, like she was trying to learn about him through his belongings. The worst part was how comfortable she looked, like she belonged there, like this was normal. David fast-forwarded through the footage. Lisa stayed in his room for almost 3 hours. 3 hours of watching him sleep, touching his things, moving around his space like it was her own home. At 4:23 a.m., she finally left. She closed the door behind her so quietly that David on the camera didn't even stir. David felt sick. He ran to the bathroom and threw up. Someone had been in his room. Someone had been watching him sleep for hours, and he had no idea. How many times had this happened? He checked the camera settings and realized it only kept footage for 24 hours. Before recording over itself, all the other nights were gone. But now he knew the truth. David's hands were shaking as he called in sick to work. He couldn't focus on anything except what he had seen. Lisa had been in his room, touching his things, watching him sleep. The thought made his skin crawl. He spent the day trying to figure out how she had gotten in. His door was locked. He was sure of it. He checked the lock and found small scratches around the keyhole. Someone had been picking his lock or using a copy of his key. David went to the hardware store and bought new locks, heavy-duty ones that would be harder to pick. While he was there, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Lisa worked there. She was behind the counter, helping customers and handling keys. She saw him and smiled that same smile, like nothing had happened. "Hi, David. What brings you in today?" David could barely speak. Just looking for some new locks." "Oh, having security issues. That's smart. You can never be too careful these days." The way she said it made David's skin crawl, like she was mocking him, like she knew exactly why he was there. "I can help you pick out the best ones," Lisa offered, coming round the counter. "No, that's okay. I've got it." But Lisa followed him to the locks section anyway. She pointed out different types, explaining how they worked, how secure they were. David realized she knew everything about locks, about how to get past them, you know? She said casually, "Most people don't realize how easy it is to copy keys. You just need to know what you're doing." David grabbed the first lock he saw and went to pay. A different cashier rang him up while Lisa watched from across the store. David could feel her eyes on him the entire time. When he got home, David installed the new locks immediately. He also bought a door alarm, something that would make noise if anyone tried to open his door. He wasn't taking any chances. That night, David barely slept. Every sound made him jump. Every creak of the old building made him think someone was trying to get in. He checked his camera footage the next morning. Nothing. The door alarm hadn't gone off. Maybe the new locks had worked. But David noticed something else. His apartment felt different. Small things were moved around again. His coffee mug was in a different spot. His book was on the wrong side of the table. Lisa had been in his apartment during the day while he was at work. David started leaving work early and coming home at different times, trying to catch her in the act. He would sit in his car outside the building, watching for any sign of Lisa entering his apartment. One afternoon, he saw her leaving the building at 3 p.m. She looked around carefully before walking away, like she was making sure no one was watching her. David waited 10 minutes, then went up to his apartment. Sure enough, things had been moved. His mail had been opened and carefully put back. His computer had been turned on. Even though he always shut it down, she was learning everything about his life, reading his mail, looking through his computer, studying his habits. David felt like he was being hunted. He tried to tell his friend Mike about what was happening, but Mike didn't believe him. "Maybe she's just being friendly," Mike said. "Some people are just like that. She's breaking into my apartment, Mike. She's watching me sleep. Did you call the police?" David had thought about it, but what would he tell them? That his neighbor was being too friendly? That he had a feeling something was wrong? He had camera footage of her in his room, but would they believe him? "Just be careful, man," Mike said. "Maybe you're stressed from the divorce and seeing things that aren't there." David knew he wasn't imagining things. The footage was real. The moved objects were real. Lisa's behavior was real. But nobody believed him. That night, David set up 2 cameras, one in his bedroom and one in his living room. He also put a piece of tape on his door frame that would break if anyone opened it. He went to bed knowing that Lisa was probably watching him, somehow learning his patterns, waiting for the right moment to strike again. David had no idea how much worse things were about to get. David woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of his door alarm going off. His heart was pounding as he grabbed his phone to check the time. 2:15 a.m. The loud beeping filled his apartment, but then suddenly stopped. Someone had turned off his alarm. David lay perfectly still, pretending to be asleep. He could hear soft footsteps in his living room. Lisa had gotten past his new locks somehow. She was inside his apartment again. The footsteps got closer to his bedroom door. David's heart was beating so loud he was sure she could hear it. He kept his eyes closed and tried to breathe normally, like he was still sleeping. The bedroom door opened slowly. David could feel someone standing in the doorway, watching him. After a few minutes, the footsteps came closer to his bed. Then something happened that made David's blood run cold. He felt the mattress move. Someone was sitting on his bed. David fought every instinct to jump up and run. He needed to see what Lisa was doing. He needed evidence that would make people believe him. She sat there for what felt like hours. Sometimes she would whisper things so quiet he couldn't make out the words. She talked like she was having a conversation with him. like he was awake and listening. "You look tired today," she whispered. "I saw you at the grocery store. You should eat better." "I worry about you." David's skin crawled. She was talking to him like they were close friends. Like this was normal. "I know you've been having trouble sleeping," she continued. "That's why I come to check on you. I want to make sure you're okay." Lisa reached out and touched his arm. David had to use all his strength not to pull away. Her hand was cold and she let it rest there for a long time. "We understand each other," she said softly. "I can tell. You need someone to take care of you." David wanted to scream. This woman was delusional. She thought they had some kind of relationship. But they barely knew each other. After what felt like forever, Lisa finally left. But not before she did something that terrified David even more. She lay down next to him on the bed. David could feel her body next to his, could hear her breathing. She stayed there for almost an hour, just lying beside him like they were sleeping together. When she finally got up and left, David waited another hour before moving. He was shaking all over. What he had experienced was beyond creepy. It was dangerous. David checked his camera footage the next morning. Everything was there, recorded in perfect detail. Lisa entering his apartment, sitting on his bed, talking to him, lying down next to him. But when he looked closer, he noticed something that made his heart sink. Lisa had covered the camera lens with a piece of tape before she left. She knew about his cameras and had been careful to hide her face for most of the footage. David realized Lisa was smarter than he had thought. She wasn't just some confused neighbor. She was calculating and careful. She knew exactly what she was doing. He decided to call the police. He had footage of someone breaking into his apartment. That had to be enough evidence. The two officers who came to his apartment were polite but skeptical. They watched some of the footage, but the tape over the camera lens made it hard to see clearly. "Can you prove this is your upstairs neighbor?" one officer asked. David realized he couldn't. The footage showed someone entering his apartment, but you couldn't see the person's face clearly. "We'll talk to her," the other officer said, "but unless you have clear evidence, there's not much we can do." 20 minutes later, David heard voices in the hallway. The police were talking to Lisa outside her apartment. "Oh my goodness," he heard Lisa say. "I can't believe someone would do that to poor David. He's been acting so strange lately. I've been worried about him." David crept to his door and listened through the peephole. "He seems very paranoid," Lisa continued, always looking over his shoulder, jumping at every sound. "I think he might be having some kind of breakdown. Has he ever approached you inappropriately?" One of the officers asked. "Well, he has been asking me a lot of personal questions, following me around the building. I didn't want to say anything because I felt sorry for him." David couldn't believe what he was hearing. Lisa was turning the whole situation around, making him look like the crazy one. "I'm just worried about him," Lisa said in a voice that sounded genuinely concerned. "Maybe he needs help." When the officers came back to David's apartment, their attitude had completely changed. "Sir, we talked to your neighbor. She seems very concerned about you. She mentioned that you've been following her around." "That's not true," David said desperately. "She's the one following me. She's been breaking into my apartment. The footage you showed us is unclear. It could be anyone. Do you have any other evidence?" David realized how this looked. A recently divorced man, living alone, claiming his female neighbor was obsessed with him. No clear evidence, his word against hers. "We recommend you stay away from your neighbor," one officer said. "If you continue to harass her, we'll have to take action." David was stunned. They thought he was the problem. After the police left, David sat in his apartment feeling helpless. Lisa had played the situation perfectly. She had made him look like the unstable one while she came across as the concerned neighbor. That night, David didn't sleep at all. He sat in his living room chair, watching his door, waiting for Lisa to show up again. At 3 a.m. She came. This time, she didn't bother with the door alarm. She walked right in like she owned the place. When she saw David sitting there, she smiled. "I was wondering when you'd stop pretending to sleep," she said calmly. "Get out of my apartment." David said, trying to keep his voice steady. This is as much my place as yours now, Lisa replied. We're connected, David. I take care of you. I know what you need better than you do. You're breaking the law. I have cameras recording everything. Lisa laughed. Who's going to believe? You? The police already think you're the problem. Your friend Mike thinks you're paranoid. Even your ex-wife thinks you're losing it. David's heart sank. She had been listening to his phone calls somehow. I know everything about you, David. I know you're lonely. I know you're scared. I know you need someone to take care of you. I don't need anything from you. I want you to leave me alone. But that's not what you really want, Lisa said, moving closer, deep down. You like knowing someone cares about you, someone who pays attention to every detail of your life. David stood up, backing away from her. You're sick. You need help. I'm the only one who really sees you, Lisa said. Everyone else in your life has left you, but I'm still here. I'll always be here. She turned and walked toward his bedroom. I'll see you later, David. Sweet dreams. David watched her leave, feeling more trapped than ever. Lisa wasn't just breaking into his apartment anymore. She was playing with his mind, making him question everything. And the worst part was, nobody believed him. David didn't sleep for 3 days straight. Every time he closed his eyes, he could feel Lisa watching him. She had stopped trying to hide what she was doing. Now she would just walk into his apartment whenever she wanted, like she lived there. 2. His life was falling apart. At work, his boss pulled him aside to ask if everything was okay. David had dark circles under his eyes and couldn't focus on anything. His hand shook when he tried to type on his computer. Maybe you should take some time off, his boss suggested. You don't look well. David wanted to explain what was happening, but he knew how it would sound. Nobody believed him about Lisa. They all thought he was having some kind of breakdown. His ex-wife Rachel called him that evening. Somehow she had heard about the police visit. David, I'm worried about you, she said. I heard you've been having problems with a neighbor. Are you taking care of yourself? I'm fine, Rachel. Someone is just making my life difficult. The police told me you might be harassing some woman. That doesn't sound like you. But David's heart sank. The police called you? They were concerned. They said you seemed paranoid and unstable. David, are you taking any medication? Are you seeing a doctor? Even his ex-wife thought he was losing his mind. Lisa had poisoned everyone against him. I have to go, David said, hanging up the phone. That night, Lisa came to his apartment earlier than usual. She walked in at 10 p.m., while David was still awake watching TV. We need to talk, she said, sitting down on his couch like she belonged there. There's nothing to talk about. I want you to leave. I've been thinking about our future together. Lisa said, ignoring what he said. I know you're scared right now, but that's normal. Starting a relationship is always scary. We don't have a relationship, David said firmly. We're not friends. We're not anything. Lisa smiled that cold smile. But we are, David. I know everything about you. I know you better than anyone else ever has. She started listing things about his life that she couldn't possibly know. She knew about his childhood dog. She knew about the scar on his knee from when he was 10. She knew about his fear of heights and his favorite movie. How do you know all that? David asked. Feeling sick. I've been researching you for months. I know your whole life story. I know about your first girlfriend in high school. I know about your college roommate. I know about your marriage and why it ended. David realized Lisa had been digging into his past, talking to people who knew him, building a complete picture of his life. I know you're lonely, Lisa continued. I know you eat dinner alone every night. I know you call your sister, but hang up before she answers because you don't want to bother her. Everything she said was true, and that made it even more terrifying. I'm the only one who really pays attention to you. Lisa said, I'm the only one who cares about every detail of your life. That's not love, David said. That's obsession. What's the difference? Lisa asked. Love is paying attention. Love is caring about someone more than anything else. Love is being willing to do anything for that person. David stood up, trying to create distance between them. You need to get help. This isn't normal. I don't need help. I need you to stop fighting this. We're meant to be together. Lisa reached into her bag and pulled out a key. David's heart stopped when he realized what it was. I had this made months ago, she said. I've been taking care of you for so long. Making sure you're safe, making sure you're eating right, making sure you're not alone. You've been drugging my food, David said, suddenly understanding why. He had been so tired, just a little something to help you sleep better. You were so restless before I started helping you. David felt like he was going to throw up. Lisa had been putting something in his food to make him sleep deeper so she could watch him. I also got you fired from your job, Lisa said casually. What? I called your boss and told him you were having mental health issues. I said you had been talking about hurting yourself and others. He was very concerned. David's phone rang. It was his boss. David, I'm sorry, but we have to let you go. Someone called and said you might be dangerous. We can't take any risks. David hung up the phone and stared at Lisa. She had destroyed his job, his reputation, his relationships. She had isolated him completely. Why would you do that? David asked. Because. Now you need me, Lisa said. Everyone else has abandoned you, but I'm still here. I'll always be here. David realized Lisa's plan. She was systematically destroying his life so he would have no choice but to depend on her. I've been watching you for over a year, Lisa continued. I followed you to different places before you moved here. I made sure I got the apartment above yours. I made sure I got the job at the hardware store. Everything was planned. David felt trapped. Lisa had been controlling his life for months without him knowing it. You're not the first person I've done this with, Lisa said. But you're special. You're the one I want to keep. What happened to the others? They didn't appreciate what I was doing for them. They tried to leave me. But you're different. You understand. David didn't understand anything except that he was in serious danger. I've prepared a place for us, Lisa said. Somewhere we can be together without any distractions. Somewhere no one will bother us. I'm not going anywhere with you. You don't have a choice. Lisa said, you have no job, no money, no friends who believe you. Everyone thinks you're crazy. I'm the only one who cares about you. She stood up and walked toward the door. Think about it, David. You can keep fighting me and end up with nothing, or you can accept what we have and be happy. After she left, David sat in his dark apartment feeling completely hopeless. Lisa had won. She had destroyed everything in his life and made herself the only option. But David wasn't ready to give up. He had one last idea, one final plan to get away from Lisa before she could take him to whatever place she had prepared. He just hoped it would work before it was too late. David spent the next day preparing his escape plan. He couldn't call the police again because they thought he was the problem. He couldn't ask friends for help because Lisa had convinced them. He was unstable. He was completely on his own. His plan was simple but risky. He would pretend to go along with Lisa's demands, make her think she had won, and then escape when she least expected it that evening. When Lisa came to his apartment, David was ready. I've been thinking about what you said, David told her. Maybe you're right. Maybe we are meant to be together. Lisa's eyes lit up. I knew you would understand eventually. We're perfect for each other. But I need to know I can trust you, David said. You've been lying to me about so many things. I never lied to you. I just didn't tell you everything right away. Show me this place you prepared for us. I want to see where we would live. Lisa hesitated. Are you sure you're ready for that? If we're going to be together, I should see our future home. Lisa smiled wider than David had ever seen. It's beautiful, David. I've been working on it for months. You're going to love it. She took him to her car, an old blue sedan that looked ordinary from the outside. But when David got in, he noticed she had removed the inside door handles. He couldn't get out without her help. They drove for about 30 minutes outside the city. Lisa kept talking about their future together, about how happy they would be, about how she would take care of him. I've thought of everything, she said. Food, books, movies, everything you need to be comfortable. David's heart was pounding, but he kept his voice calm. It sounds wonderful. They pulled up to a small cabin in the woods. It looked isolated, surrounded by trees with no other houses. Inside, David realized that if Lisa brought him here, nobody would ever find him. Come on, Lisa said excitedly. Let me show you around. The cabin looked normal from the outside, but inside, David saw the true horror of Lisa's plan. All the windows had been boarded up from the inside. The doors had multiple locks, the kind that needed keys to open from both sides. I soundproofed the walls, Lisa said proudly. Nobody will disturb us here. David saw pictures of himself covering the walls, photos of him sleeping, eating, walking down the street. Some of the pictures were taken from inside his apartment. Lisa had been watching him for much longer than he thought. I have months of food stored. Lisa continued. We won't need to leave for a very long time. David realized this wasn't just obsession. Lisa was planning to keep him prisoner. She had created a jail disguised as a love nest. It's perfect, David said, forcing himself to smile. You thought of everything. I knew you would love it, Lisa said. We can start our new life together right now. She pulled out a bag from a closet. I brought some of your things from your apartment. Your favorite clothes, your books, your photos. David looked in the bag and saw items from his bedroom. Lisa had been taking his belongings for months, preparing for this moment. Why? Don't you get settled in, Lisa said. I'll go get the rest of your things and we can officially move in together. This was David's chance. Lisa was going to leave him alone in the cabin while she went back to his apartment. Actually, David said, I'd like to come with you. I want to say goodbye to my old life properly. Lisa looked suspicious. I don't think that's a good idea. You might get emotional and change your mind. I won't change my mind, David said. I want to be with you, but I need closure. I need to pack my own things and say goodbye to that part of my life. Lisa thought about it for a moment. Okay, but I'll be right there with you. No tricks. They drove back to the apartment building. David's mind was racing, trying to figure out how to get away from Lisa. She watched him constantly, never leaving his side. When they got to his apartment, David saw his chance. His neighbor Mrs. Chen was in the hallway with her cat. Oh, David. Mrs. Chen said, I was worried about you. You look so tired lately. I'm fine, Mrs. Chen. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Lisa grabbed David's arm. We don't have time to chat. We need to pack your things. But David pulled away and spoke loudly so Mrs. Chen could hear everything. Mrs. Chen, I need you to call the police. This woman has been breaking into my apartment. For months, she's been drugging my food and trying to kidnap me. David, stop, Lisa said angrily. You're embarrassing yourself. She has a cabin in the woods where she's planning to keep me prisoner. She's dangerous. Mrs. Chen looked confused, but she could see the fear in David's eyes. Should I call 911? Yes, please, David said. Lisa realized her plan was falling apart. David, you're making a mistake. We belong together. I love you more than anyone ever will. That's not love, David said. Love doesn't involve breaking into someone's home. Love doesn't involve drugging someone or destroying their life. I did everything for you, Lisa said, her voice getting louder. I took care of you when nobody else would. I was the only one who really cared. You cared about controlling me. You cared about owning me. That's not the same thing. Mrs. Chen was already on the phone with 911. Lisa could hear her giving the address to the police. You're ruining everything, Lisa said to David. We could have been happy together. We were never together, David said. You created a fantasy in your head, but it wasn't real. The police arrived within minutes. This time, David had a witness. Mrs. Chen had seen Lisa's strange behavior and heard her talking about keeping David at a cabin. When the police searched Lisa's apartment, they found thousands of photos of David. They found copies of his keys, records of his daily activities, and plans for keeping him at the cabin. They also found evidence of other men Lisa had stalked over the years. David wasn't her first victim, but he was the first one who had managed to escape. Lisa was arrested and charged with stalking, breaking and entering, and attempted kidnapping. The evidence was overwhelming. During the trial, David learned the full extent of Lisa's obsession. She had been planning to take him to the cabin for over 6 months. She had quit her job and spent all her savings preparing for their life together. The judge sentenced Lisa to 5 years in prison and ordered her to get psychiatric help. David moved to a different city after the trial. He got a new job, made new friends, and slowly rebuilt his life. He still had trouble sleeping sometimes, and he always checked his locks twice before bed, but he was free. He learned to trust his instincts and to speak up when something felt wrong. He learned that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who want to control you the most. Most importantly, David learned that real love means respecting someone's choices, even if those choices don't include you. 6 months after the trial, David met a woman named Amy at a coffee shop. She was kind, funny, and respected his need to take things slow. When David told her about what had happened with Lisa, Amy listened without judgment. "I'm sorry you went through that," Amy said. "Nobody should have to experience that kind of fear." "I'm doing better now," David said, "but it changed how I see relationships. I know the difference between love and obsession now." David was finally free to live his life on his own terms. He had survived Lisa's twisted version of love and found his way back to himself. Sometimes he still wondered if Lisa thought about him in prison, but he tried not to dwell on it. He had his life back, and that was what mattered. The experience had taught him that the most important relationship you can have is with yourself. Once you know your own worth, you'll never let anyone convince you that their obsession is love.